The emergency broadcast crackled across every diplomatic channel in the known galaxy. Admiral Torvin's scaled face filled screens from the core worlds to the outer reaches. His voice carried the weight of 800 warships assembled at humanity's border. Terran Command, you have 72 hours to surrender the colonies of New Perth, Arcadia, and Horizon's Edge. His declaration echoed through the Galactic Council chambers where Ambassador Rella sat among dozens of other species. Representatives. Furthermore, you will provide annual tribute of resources as compensation for your encroachment into territories we claim. Failure to comply will result in military action. Rella watched the broadcast with careful attention, her Quarren physiology allowing her to process multiple data streams simultaneously. She had spent 2 years studying humans and their peculiar customs, but she had never witnessed them facing an existential threat. The Kryn Dominion was no minor power. Their warriors were legendary. Their fleet technology rivaled the best in the galaxy. Most species would already be evacuating their colonies or drafting surrender terms. The council chamber buzzed with speculation. Representatives from dozens of worlds whispered predictions, placed bets, calculated the economic impact of 3 human colonies changing hands. Rella listened, but said nothing. Something felt incomplete about this scenario. Exactly 1 hour after Torvin's ultimatum, a response arrived. Admiral Walsh of Terran Fleet Command appeared via hologram. His uniform crisp, his expression neutral. He looked directly at the camera with eyes that betrayed no emotion. "Your message has been received and noted," he said, then disconnected before anyone could respond. The chamber fell silent. Rella's sensory organs tingled with confusion. That was it. No threats, no counterdemands, no diplomatic maneuvering, just acknowledgement. The Kryn representative stood abruptly, his face flushed with what Rella recognized as insulted pride. "This is unacceptable," the Kryn diplomat hissed. "Admiral Torvin deserves proper response, not dismissal." But humans had already closed their channel. Rella immediately began monitoring human communication networks, expecting to find panic, military mobilization, civilian evacuation orders. Instead, she found something that defied all her training. Business as usual, cargo manifests being filed, school schedules being posted, weather reports being broadcast. On New Perth, the colony world directly threatened. Farmers were discussing crop rotations. She expanded her search, diving deeper into human military channels. Surely there must be encrypted orders, fleet movements, defense preparations. The patterns were there if one knew how to look, but she found only routine patrol schedules, standard maintenance logs, normal supply requisitions. It made no sense. Ambassador Kelvin from the Taurian Collective leaned toward her, his bulbous eyes wide with concern. "Have the humans gone mad?" he whispered. "Do they not understand the threat?" Rella shook her head slowly. "I do not know," she admitted, "but I have learned that humans rarely do things without reason." 24 hours passed. The Kryn fleet moved closer to human space. Their formations perfect, their weapons hot, their intent clear. Torvin issued another broadcast, this one more aggressive, detailing the exact military action he would take if humans continued their silence. He called them cowards, prey, unworthy of the space they occupied. Still, humanity remained calm. Rella watched human news broadcasts. A reporter interviewed colonists on New Perth. "Are you worried about the Kryn threat?" The reporter asked a young mother standing outside a school. The woman shrugged. "Our military knows what they're doing," she said simply. "I trust them." Then she went back to discussing the upcoming school festival. This was wrong. This was impossible. Rella had studied countless species' responses to military threats. There was always fear, always preparation visible to external observers, always some sign of the coming storm. But humans showed nothing. They continued their lives as if 800 warships were not gathering to destroy them. She pulled up historical records of human conflicts, looking for patterns. What she found disturbed her more than the current calm. Humans had a reputation for being slow to anger, but when they finally responded to threats, the response was devastating. They did not panic because they did not need to. They calculated, they planned, they executed with precision that bordered on mechanical. But what were they planning now? Where were their fleets? Why were their colonies not being fortified? 48 hours in a crisis. Rella's government sent urgent recall orders. They wanted their ambassador away from what they assumed would be a war zone. She ignored the orders. She had to see this through, had to understand what the humans were doing. The Kryn fleet crossed into the neutral zone. Torvin's final ultimatum echoed across all channels. 24 hours remain, he declared. After that, we will take what you refuse to give. Terran Fleet Command responded again. The same Admiral Walsh. The same neutral expression. The Kryn Dominion is advised to reconsider their position, he said calmly, then disconnected again. Torvin's roar of rage could be heard even over the static. They mock us, he shouted. They treat this like a game. But Rella was no longer certain that was true. She had spent 6 hours analyzing every piece of data she could access about human space. And she had finally found the anomalies. Tiny irregularities in commercial traffic, slight deviations in patrol routes, minor scheduling changes that meant nothing individually, but together formed a pattern she could not yet decipher. The humans were doing something. They had been doing it since the moment Torvin issued his ultimatum. But it was so subtle, so carefully hidden within normal operations, that even she could barely detect it. 12 hours before the deadline, she sent a message to her government. Something is wrong, she wrote. The humans are too calm. I believe they know something we do not. Her superior's response was immediate. What do they know? Rella stared at the data streams flowing across her screens, at the peaceful human colonies, at the approaching Kryn fleet, at the absolute absence of visible human military response. I do not know, she wrote back, but I believe we are about to find out. Betting pools had formed across 36 worlds, odds shifting by the hour as the deadline approached. The smart money said the Kryn would steamroll through human defenses within a week. Some optimists gave humanity 2 weeks. A few fringe bettors wagered on human victory, but they were laughed out of serious consideration. Rella ignored the gambling. She was too busy trying to understand the pattern she had discovered. Her analysis systems had been running for 30 hours straight, processing terabytes of data from human space. The results were contradictory, maddening, impossible. Every single human cargo ship had adjusted its route in the last 48 hours. The changes were minimal. A few degrees here, an extra stop there. But when she plotted all the alterations together, they created a network of cleared space lanes, as if someone was moving furniture before a party. But for what purpose? Meanwhile, human military vessels continued their routine patrols, except these patrols took them to very specific coordinates. They would arrive, stay for exactly 90 minutes, then move to another location. Rella's computers calculated the positions. They formed a 3-dimensional grid around the threatened colonies. But the grid was enormous, far larger than any defensive perimeter she had ever seen. They are either brilliant or insane, she muttered to herself. Ambassador Kelvin approached her workstation, his tentacles quivering with anxiety. Any updates? He asked. The humans are moving pieces on a board we cannot see, Rella replied. But I cannot determine the game they are playing. On the view screens, news feeds showed the Kryn fleet in all its terrible glory. 800 ships arranged in perfect attack formation, their hulls gleaming with weapon arrays, their engines burning bright enough to be seen from 3 systems away. It was the largest single military force assembled in 2 decades. By contrast, human space appeared almost empty. A few patrol ships here and there, commercial traffic moving along its adjusted routes. Nothing that resembled a defensive fleet. Nothing that could stand against the Kryn armada. Rella accessed human civilian networks again. This time focusing on social media and personal communications, she wanted to understand the mindset of people facing imminent invasion. What she found contradicted everything she knew about crisis psychology. A teenager on New Perth posted about an upcoming concert. A businessman on Arcadia complained about traffic delays. A teacher on Horizon's Edge shared pictures of her students' art projects. There were mentions of the Kryn situation, but they were casual, almost dismissive. Do these people not understand they might die? Ambassador Kelvin asked, reading over her shoulder. They understand, Rella said slowly, but they are not afraid. She pulled up an interview from a human news channel. A retired Terran Navy officer was being asked about the crisis. The reporter seemed more worried than the veteran. Sir, the Kryn have 800 warships. What chance does our fleet have? The old man smiled. Actually smiled. The Kryn have 800 ships they can see, he said, but warfare is not about what you can see. It is about what you have prepared. Our military has been ready for this exact scenario for years, but we have not seen any mobilization. That is because you're looking in the wrong places, the veteran said. When Terran fleet command moves, the battle is already over. The enemy just does not know it yet. The interview ended, leaving Rella more confused than before. She ran probability simulations, trying to account for hidden human assets. Even if they had twice as many ships as visible, they would still be outnumbered. Even if their technology was superior, which intelligence suggested it was not, the numbers did not favor them. 6 hours before the deadline, something changed. The anomaly was so small that most observers missed it entirely. But Rella's enhanced sensors caught the energy signatures, massive gravity fluctuations at the edges of human space. Not near the threatened colonies, but deeper in Terran territory, hundreds of light years from the crisis zone. She checked her readings 3 times, certain they were errors, but the data was consistent. Something huge was generating those distortions, multiple somethings, and they were moving. The Kryn fleet crossed the final neutral marker. Torvin issued his last warning, his voice thundering with righteous fury. Your time has expired. Your silence has sealed your fate. The Kryn Dominion will take what is ours by right of strength. Admiral Walsh appeared one final time, his expression unchanged from the first broadcast. Admiral Torvin, he said, his voice carrying an odd quality that Rella could not identify. You were given every opportunity to reconsider. What happens next is your choice, not ours. The transmission ended. For the first time, Rella saw something in Walsh's eyes that made her spine tingle. Not fear, not anger, just absolute certainty. The look of someone who had already seen the outcome and was simply waiting for others to catch up. The Kryn fleet surged forward, entering human space with weapons armed and shields at maximum. Their target, New Perth, estimated arrival time. For hours, the invasion had begun. Rella watched her sensors, watched the human colonies, watched the vast empty space between the Kryn fleet and their targets. And then she saw it. The first piece of the puzzle falling into place. One of those routine patrol ships, a small destroyer that had been lazily circling a dead moon, suddenly accelerated, not away from the Kryn fleet, but perpendicular to their approach. It moved to a specific coordinate and stopped, doing nothing except existing in that exact spot. Then another patrol ship did the same. And another. And another. Within 10 minutes, 20 human vessels had moved to precise positions, forming a pattern that Rella's computer recognized immediately. They were making a navigation grid, creating reference points in space. For what? She wondered. What needed navigation references in empty space? The answer came 30 minutes later, when her sensors detected the first spatial distortion, then another, then dozens, then hundreds, appearing exactly where those gravity fluctuations had originated hours before. Something massive was jumping through hyperspace, multiple massive somethings, and they were using the patrol ships as beacons. The Galactic Council chamber had gone completely silent. Every ambassador staring at their screens, watching sensor data that should not be possible. What are those signatures? Someone whispered. Rella's computer calculated mass, energy output, probable vessel class. The numbers made her heart skip. Capital ships, she breathed. Hundreds of them. The Kryn fleet was 4 hours from New Perth, racing toward what they thought was an undefended colony, completely unaware that behind them, ahead of them, around them, a trap was closing, and the humans, those impossibly calm humans, had spent 72 hours positioning every piece exactly where it needed to be. Rella understood now. The calm was not ignorance. It was confidence. Absolute, unshakable confidence born from perfect preparation by the ancestors. She whispered. They were never going to fight a battle. Ambassador Kelvin looked at her. What do you mean? They were going to execute a plan, Rella said, watching as more and more human capital ships emerged from hyperspace. And plans do not require panic. 3 human destroyers floated directly in the Kryn fleet's path, their hulls small and insignificant against the wall of 800 warships bearing down on them. Aboard the lead Kryn vessel, Admiral Torvin allowed himself a moment of satisfaction. Finally, some resistance. Even if pathetically inadequate, Terran vessels, stand down immediately or be destroyed, his communications officer transmitted. The response came from the lead destroyer, a woman's voice, calm and professional. Negative. We are conducting routine patrol operations, continuing on assigned course. Torvin's blood heated. You are in the path of a battle fleet. Withdraw or face annihilation. Acknowledged, the human captain replied. Continuing patrol. The destroyers did not change course, did not power weapons, did not even raise additional shields. They simply maintained their exact heading and speed, as if 800 warships did not exist. Fire, Torvin commanded. Energy beams lanced out from a dozen Kryn vessels, hammering into the human ships. The destroyers' shields flared, absorbed the damage, and held. The ships continued forward, taking hit after hit, their shields eventually failing, hull plating scorching under sustained fire, and still they did not return fire. Rella watched from the council chamber, her analytical mind racing. This made no tactical sense. The destroyers were being destroyed for no purpose, unless her eyes widened. Unless the purpose was not military. They are buying time, she said aloud. Time for what? Ambassador Kelvin asked. They cannot evacuate whole colonies in hours. No, Rella whispered. Time for the rest of the fleet to arrive. On the screens, the battered human destroyers finally broke formation, limping away with critical damage. But they had accomplished something. They had delayed the Kryn fleet by exactly 90 minutes. The time needed to respond to their presence and eliminate them. 90 minutes, Rella thought, checking the timeline of those gravity distortions. That was exactly the gap between the first spatial jumps and when the human capital fleet would reach optimal position. The Kryn fleet surged forward again, confident now. If 3 destroyers were all humanity could muster, this would be easier than anticipated. Torvin ordered increased speed, eager to reach New Perth before any other resistance appeared. That was when the universe changed. Space itself seemed to ripple. Sensors across 1,000 ships screamed warnings simultaneously. Energy signatures erupted from every direction. Not small patrol craft this time, but massive capital ships phasing into normal space with the precision of a synchronized dance. Ahead of the Kryn fleet, 200 Terran battleships materialized, their hulls dwarfing anything the Kryn possessed. Behind them, another 100 cruisers. To their flanks, destroyer wings and carrier groups. Above and below, more ships appearing every second. The Kryn fleet, once an unstoppable hammer, suddenly found itself surrounded. What is this? Torvin roared. Where did they come from? His tactical officer's hands shook as he worked the console. Sir, I am detecting 400. No. 500. Contacts keep appearing. Sir, we are completely surrounded. Rella's screens showed the full picture, and it was breathtaking in its complexity. Every human ship positioned with mathematical precision, not in an aggressive formation, but in a perfect containment sphere. Every possible escape route blocked. Every tactical advantage nullified. The Kryn fleet trapped in a cage of steel and energy, and then Admiral Walsh spoke. His voice broadcast on all frequencies, still calm, still professional, still utterly without emotion. Admiral Torvin, you were given 72 hours to reconsider your position, he said. You chose to invade sovereign Terran space. You chose to fire upon our vessels. These were your choices. Now you face the consequences. Torvin stared at the tactical display, his mind struggling to process what had happened. This is impossible. We monitored your space. There was no fleet assembly, no mobilization. You monitored what we allowed you to see. Walsh replied, "Our fleet has been positioned for 3 days. You were permitted to approach, guided along a specific path, observed at every moment. This outcome was determined the moment you issued your ultimatum." Rella understood now. Those cargo route changes had cleared civilian traffic from the combat zone. Those patrol ships had been placing hyperspace beacons. Those gravity fluctuations had been capital ships moving into position. Everything, every single action over 72 hours, had been choreographed. The humans had not been preparing for battle. They had been preparing a trap. Terran fleet, Walsh's voice continued. Weapons cold. Shields maximum. Defensive posture only. The human ships complied instantly. Their weapon systems powering down, but their shields glowing with barely contained energy. Admiral Torvin, you have 1 hour to withdraw your forces from Terran space. After that, we will interpret your continued presence as hostile intent and act accordingly. Still offering surrender, Rella realized. Even now, with overwhelming advantage, the humans were giving the Kryn a way out. Torvin's face twisted with rage and humiliation. "You expect us to retreat, to show our backs to you like cowards? We expect you to choose survival over pride," Walsh said, "but the choice is yours." The Kryn admiral cut the transmission, turning to his officers, his warriors. "What say you?" he demanded. "Do we fight or flee?" Rella watched the internal Kryn communications, saw the fleet splitting into factions, younger officers arguing for withdrawal, veterans demanding death before dishonor. The debate growing heated. Meanwhile, the human fleet waited, motionless, patient, like predators who had already caught their prey and were simply deciding whether to kill it. One Kryn ship, then another, began powering down weapons, their captains making individual choices, but others, particularly those clustered around Torvin's flagship, increased power to combat systems, preparing for a final stand. 50 ships, Rella counted. 50 vessels whose commanders valued honor over life. They broke formation, arranging themselves for an attack run. Their leader, Commander Breck, opened a channel to the human fleet. "We are Kryn warriors," he declared. "We do not surrender. We do not retreat. If we must die, we die fighting." The council chamber held its collective breath, expecting the human response to be devastating, expecting those calm, patient warships to finally unleash their full power. Instead, Walsh's voice returned, carrying something Rella had not heard before. "Respect, Commander Breck. Your courage is acknowledged," he said, "but courage without wisdom is waste of life. There is no honor in pointless death. Stand down. Return to your people. Live to fight worthy battles." "Our battle is here," Breck replied. "With you, then you choose poorly," Walsh said. And for the first time, Rella heard sadness in his voice. The 50 Kryn ships charged, weapons blazing, screaming their war cries across open channels. They expected glorious combat, expected the humans to finally show their true destructive capability. What happened instead would echo through galactic history. The human fleet did not fire a single offensive shot. Their point defense systems activated, creating walls of precision energy that intercepted every Kryn weapon discharge. Not a single human ship took damage, not even a scratch on their shields. And then, with surgical precision, human weapons came online, targeting only, exclusively, Kryn weapon systems. Beam strikes of such accuracy that they disabled, not destroyed, cutting power to weapons arrays without breaching hulls, without harming crews. Within 3 minutes, all 50 charging. Kryn ships drifted helpless, their weapons offline, their crews unharmed, their ships intact. Human tractor beams engaged, preventing collisions. Medical ships moved forward, offering assistance. Torvin watched it all, watched his bravest warriors rendered harmless without casualties, watched humans demonstrate power to destroy, choosing instead to preserve. "What kind of species are you?" he whispered. The question hung in space, unanswered, as 50 disabled Kryn warships floated among 500 human vessels, Admiral Torvin's fleet had fractured. Not from damage, but from doubt. His warriors were arguing. Something Kryn warriors never did in the face of battle. We should withdraw. One captain transmitted on the command channel. They have shown mercy. We should accept it. Mercy from prey is insult. Another countered. We attack, or we are cowards. Torvin listened to his officers, tearing themselves apart. Watched human medical ships moving toward his disabled warriors, offering aid to those who had attacked them. Tried to comprehend a military philosophy so alien to everything he knew. Rella monitored every channel, every transmission. The Galactic Council chamber had erupted in chaos. Representatives shouting over each other, some demanding the humans be censured for such overwhelming force, others praising their restraint, none truly understanding what they were. Witnessing, they could destroy the entire Kryn fleet in minutes, Ambassador Kelvin said, his voice awed. Yet they disable, they offer medical aid, they give chances to surrender. This violates every principle of warfare. No, Rella corrected. This violates every principle of warfare as we know it. The humans are teaching us something new. On the human flagship, Admiral Walsh waited, his bridge crew silent, professional, showing no triumph, no anger, no emotion beyond focused duty. He had given Torvin 1 hour. He would wait exactly that long. Not a moment less. Not a moment more. Aboard the Kryn flagship, Commander Breck's transmission came through, his voice heavy with emotions he could not name. Admiral Torvin, my warriors are disabled but alive. The humans are sending medical personnel to check on injured crew. They are helping us, I see it, Torvin replied. Sir, I do not understand. We attacked them, tried to kill them. Why do they not retaliate? Torvin had no answer. In Kryn culture, defeated enemies were shown mercy only after they surrendered. But these humans had shown mercy before victory, had prevented deaths even of those attacking them. It made his head hurt trying to understand the logic. A new transmission came, this one from his own government. The Kryn High Command had been monitoring everything. Admiral Torvin, withdraw immediately. This conflict is over. We have not been defeated. Torvin protested. We still have 750 functional ships. You are surrounded by a force you cannot defeat, the High Commander replied. Continuing serves no purpose except death. The humans have demonstrated their capability. Withdraw with honor while honor remains possible. With honor, Torvin thought bitterly. What honor was there in retreat? But then he looked at his tactical display, saw his ships scattered and divided, saw the human fleet positioned with impossible precision, saw his bravest warriors floating helpless, unharmed, but undeniably defeated. The humans had done something no enemy had ever managed. They had won without breaking his fleet, without killing his warriors, without giving him even the dignity of glorious defeat in battle. They had simply, calmly, inevitably, made continued resistance pointless. 30 minutes remained of Walsh's deadline when Rella detected a change in Kryn fleet disposition, ships beginning to reform. Not for attack, but for withdrawal formation. Torvin was making his choice. The Kryn admiral opened a channel, his voice controlled but strained. Terran Fleet Command. This is Admiral Torvin of the Kryn Dominion. He paused, the words clearly difficult. We acknowledge the tactical situation, request permission to withdraw our forces from Terran space. The council chamber fell silent, every being present leaning toward their screens. This was the moment that would define future galactic politics. Walsh's response came without delay. Permission granted, Admiral Torvin. His voice carried no gloating, no mockery, just simple acknowledgement. All Kryn vessels are cleared for immediate departure. Safe passage guaranteed through Terran space. Your disabled ships will receive repair assistance if requested. No reparations will be demanded. No penalties imposed. No treaty required. Go in peace. Rella's analytical mind cataloged every word, every implication. The humans were not just winning. They were redefining what victory meant. No demands for resources. No territorial concessions. No forcing the Kryn to sign humiliating agreements. Just go in peace. Why? Torvin asked, the question bursting from him. Why do you not press your advantage? Demand surrender. Take what you could easily claim. Walsh was quiet for a moment. When he spoke, his words would be quoted for generations. Because, Admiral, we did not seek this conflict. We will not profit from it. You made a mistake in judgment. We corrected that mistake. The lesson is learned. Nothing more is needed. You are warriors, Torvin said. I saw your precision, your planning, your power. True warriors, we are protectors, Walsh corrected gently. There is a difference. Warriors seek battle. Protectors seek peace. We became strong enough that we could afford to be gentle. We built this fleet not to conquer, but so we would never need to fight. The philosophical difference struck Rella like physical force. Every other species built military power to use it, to expand, to dominate. Humans built military power to prevent its use. They had turned warfare itself into a deterrent rather than a tool. Torvin's fleet began moving, slowly, carefully, the disabled ships taken in tow by their companions. Human vessels adjusted position, creating a clear corridor for withdrawal. Not a single weapon tracked the departing Kryn. Not a single threatening gesture made. As the last Kryn ship crossed back into neutral space, Commander Breck transmitted one final message. Admiral Walsh, you defeated us without destroying us. Showed us mercy we did not earn. The Kryn Dominion will remember this. Remember it well, Walsh replied. And perhaps next time, talk before threatening. The transmission ended. The crisis over. The Galactic Council erupted in discussion, analysis, debate, but Rella ignored them all. She was watching something more important. On New Perth, the colony world that had been the target of invasion, life continued exactly as before. The school festival was being set up. Farmers were harvesting crops. That young mother was picking up her children. None of them had ever doubted their safety. That was the real story, Rella realized. Not the military victory, but the absolute confidence that had permeated every level of human society, from Admiral Walsh on his flagship to colonists on threatened worlds. They had all shared the same certainty. Their protectors would handle it. She began composing her report, knowing it would change how the Quarren, Federation, and perhaps the entire galaxy viewed humanity. Subject line: the day warfare changed first line. Today I witnessed a species win a war by refusing to fight it. Across human space, Admiral Walsh stood down from alert status, his fleet dispersing back to normal patrol routes, his bridge crew chatting casually about dinner plans, as if they had not just reshaped galactic politics. Sir, his executive officer said, the Council is requesting a formal statement. Walsh shook his head. Tell them the fleet has no statement. We were doing our job. Nothing more. Some species are calling it a demonstration of overwhelming force. It was a demonstration of overwhelming restraint, Walsh corrected. Much harder to achieve. He looked at the stars beyond his viewport, at the vast frontier of human space, at the thousands of worlds depending on ships like his. Log it as a successful diplomatic resolution, he ordered, and let us get back to work. 7 days after what the galaxy now called the Terran incident, the Galactic Council convened its largest assembly in 50 years. Every member species sent their highest-ranking diplomats. Observation requests came from dozens of unaligned worlds. The chamber, built to hold 200 representatives, now hosted over 400. Ambassador Rella stood at the central podium, her presentation materials ready. She had spent 6 days analyzing every aspect of the crisis, cross-referencing with historical human conflicts, interviewing anyone who would talk to her. What she had discovered would reshape galactic civilization. Honored representatives, she began, I present findings regarding humanity's response to the Kryn incursion. What we witnessed was not merely a military victory. It was a fundamental challenge to our understanding of power itself. She displayed the timeline. 72 hours compressed into a visual representation. Humans did not respond to the Kryn threat. They had already responded. Their entire defensive doctrine is based on preparation rather than reaction. When Admiral Torvin issued his ultimatum, the trap was already built. They simply waited for him to walk into it. Murmurs rippled through the assembly. The Taurian representative raised a tentacle. But surely this was specific to the Kryn situation. Humans got lucky. Rella shook her head. Pulling up older data, I have analyzed 30 years of human military records. This is standard. Doctrine: they do not scramble forces when threatened. They position forces before threats emerge. They do not build weapons to fight wars. They build weapons to prevent wars. The difference is philosophical, but the results are absolute. She showed sensor logs of the human fleet positioning. 500 capital ships moved into containment formation without ever appearing on threat sensors. They used civilian traffic as cover, routine patrols as positioning, normal operations as camouflage. When the Kryn fleet attacked, they were already surrounded. The battle was over before it began. Then humans are simply better at deception, someone called out. No, Rella replied firmly. They are better at patience. Every other species, when threatened, responds with visible force. Mobilizations, declarations, shows of strength. Humans do none of that. They simply, quietly, inevitably, create conditions where aggression becomes pointless. The chamber fell silent as she displayed the final battle sequence. And when they had overwhelming advantage, when they could have destroyed the entire Kryn fleet, they chose surgical disabling, chose medical assistance, chose to let their enemy retreat without concessions or penalties. Weakness, a harsh voice declared. Admiral Torvin strode into the chamber, his presence shocking everyone. He was supposed to be under house arrest on his homeworld. They showed weakness by not pressing their advantage. Rella looked at him calmly. Then why are you here, Admiral? Torvin's scales flushed, but he continued. I am here because the Kryn High Command has, against my advice, voted to seek alliance with humanity. He paused, the admission clearly painful. They believe that any species capable of such restraint, such precision, such mercy, is one worth learning from rather than fighting. The revelation sent shockwaves through the assembly. The Kryn Dominion, one of the galaxy's most aggressive powers, seeking alliance instead of revenge. The humans defeated us without humiliating us, Torvin continued, his voice rough. They showed our warriors mercy. They offered aid to those who attacked them. They gave us every opportunity to choose peace. And when we finally made that choice, they asked nothing in return. He looked directly at Rella. That is not weakness. That is strength beyond my comprehension. Over the next hours, representative after representative shared their analyses. Economic projections showed human trade increasing exponentially. Worlds that had been neutral were now requesting formal relations. Even species historically hostile to outsiders were sending diplomatic inquiries. But it was the military implications that truly resonated. The Varan Confederacy, longtime rivals of humanity, announced immediate cessation of border provocations. The Pelian Empire, which had been quietly building forces near human space, redirected their fleet to other sectors. A dozen minor conflicts along human borders simply stopped because everyone now understood pushing humanity would not result in gradual escalation. It would result in being surrounded by forces you never saw moving, being defeated by fleets you did not know existed, being shown mercy you had not earned. Fighting humans was not dangerous because they were cruel. It was dangerous because they were just. Rella's final presentation slide appeared. A simple quote from Admiral Walsh. We build strength so we can afford kindness. This is the human philosophy. She explained, they do not see military power and compassion as opposites. They see them as complementary. They build overwhelming force precisely so they can choose not to use it. The stronger they become, the gentler they can afford to be. A young representative from a recently spacefaring species raised her hand. Ambassador Rella, does this mean humans will become the dominant galactic power? Rella considered the question carefully. I believe humans are already becoming the dominant power, but not through conquest, through example. They have shown that victory does not require destruction, that strength does not require cruelty, that peace can be achieved through preparation rather than aggression. Every species now faces a choice: adapt to this new paradigm or become irrelevant. The Assembly voted that day to invite humanity to lead a new council on conflict resolution, to share their military doctrine, to help reform galactic warfare conventions. The humans politely declined the leadership position, offering instead to participate as equals and advisors. Even in victory, even in influence, they refused dominance. Rella returned to her quarters after the session, exhausted but satisfied. Her report would be studied for generations, but she had one more interview to conduct. She had requested, and received, permission to speak with Admiral Walsh directly. His hologram appeared, still in that crisp uniform, still with that calm expression. "Ambassador Rella, I am told you have questions. Just one," she said. "Why? With such power, why choose restraint?" Walsh smiled, his first genuine smile she had seen. "Because, Ambassador, we remember what it was like to be afraid. We remember wars that destroyed millions, conflicts that nearly ended our species. We built this fleet, this doctrine, this entire philosophy, because we never want another species to experience what we did." He paused. "We are not restraining ourselves despite our power. We are restraining ourselves because of our power. The strong have a duty to the weak. The capable have a duty to the struggling. We became powerful so we could be gentle, and we choose gentleness because we're finally strong enough to afford it." The transmission ended, leaving Rella alone with thoughts that would fill volumes. Somewhere in deep space, a militant faction was debating whether to challenge human expansion into a disputed sector. Their war leader pulled up footage of the Terran incident, watched the calm, methodical defeat of the Kryn fleet, watched the mercy shown to defeated enemies. "We find a diplomatic solution," he decided, immediately, on New Perth. The school festival proceeded as scheduled, children laughing, parents chatting, colonists living their lives in absolute confidence. Above them, invisible but present, Terran patrol ships maintained their watch, quiet, professional, patient, ready for everything. Hoping for nothing, Rella added one final line to her report. "Humanity has taught the galaxy its greatest lesson. True power is not the ability to destroy your enemies. True power is the ability to not need to." And across 1,000 worlds, in 100 languages, in countless political chambers and military academies, the story spread. The day the Kryn challenged humanity. The day absolute calm proved stronger than overwhelming force. The day the galaxy learned what it really meant when humans said, "We come in peace, because peace." Backed by such capability, by such discipline, by such unwavering calm, was not weakness. It was the most terrifying strength of all.